My wife, Dorothy, 27F, and I, 28M, have been married for 5 years. We met during our sophomore year in college. I was the quiet, tech-savvy guy always tinkering with computers in the library. Dorothy was this vibrant, athletic girl who captained the college volleyball team. We were an unlikely pair, but that's what made our connection special. I still remember the day we met. I was struggling with a particularly tricky piece of code when Dorothy approached me, asking for help with her laptop. As I fixed her computer, we started talking. Her infectious laugh and genuine interest in my work caught me off guard. Before I knew it, we'd spent hours chatting, completely losing track of time. From that day on, we were inseparable. Our differences complemented each other perfectly. She taught me to appreciate the outdoors, dragging me on hikes and camping trips. In return, I introduced her to the world of technology, showing her how to build her own computer. After graduation, we both landed jobs in the same city. I joined a tech startup, while Dorothy became a physical education teacher at a local high school. We dated for 2 years before I proposed. It was during one of our camping trips, under a star-filled sky. Dorothy cried happy tears as she said yes. Our early married years were blissful. We were young, in love, and ready to take on the world together. Dorothy was always slim and fit back then. She'd wake up at dawn for her morning runs, meticulously plan our meals to ensure we ate healthily. I admired her dedication to fitness and tried to keep up, though I was never as disciplined as her. Things began to change when I got a significant promotion at work. The new position came with more responsibilities, longer hours, but also a considerable pay raise. We moved from our small apartment to a spacious house in the suburbs. We bought a new car, started taking vacations to exotic locations. Life was good, and I wanted to share all of it with Dorothy. In my desire to make her happy, I started pampering Dorothy. We began eating out more often, trying new restaurants every weekend. When work kept me late at the office, I'd order her favorite takeout as an apology. On weekends, we'd spend lazy mornings in bed, ordering breakfast instead of going for our usual run. Gradually, over the next couple of years, Dorothy started putting on weight. It wasn't noticeable at first, just a softening of her athletic frame, a slight roundness to her face. I didn't mind it. To me, she was still the beautiful woman I fell in love with, curves and all. But society can be cruel. I first noticed it at a company Christmas party. As Dorothy reached for a second helping of dessert, I overheard 2 of my colleagues whispering. "Look at how chubby she's getting," one said. "She used to be so fit," the other replied. Their words made my blood boil, but I didn't confront them. Instead, I watched Dorothy for the rest of the night, noticing how people's eyes lingered on her, how conversations would stop when she approached. After that, I couldn't help but notice it everywhere. At family gatherings, our relatives would make backhanded compliments about Dorothy's healthy appetite. At her school reunions, old classmates would do double takes, their surprise at her changed appearance poorly concealed. Dorothy became increasingly self-conscious. She started avoiding social events, making excuses not to attend parties. Shopping trips, once a fun activity for her, became ordeals. I'd watch her face fall as she tried on clothes that no longer fit. Our intimacy suffered too. She'd often turn off the lights during sex or cover herself up. I tried to reassure her, to tell her how beautiful she was to me, but I could see she was struggling. The turning point came after a disastrous beach vacation. Dorothy had been dreading it for weeks, knowing she'd have to wear a swimsuit. On our first day there, as we walked along the beach, a group of teenagers snickered as we passed. I pretended not to hear their cruel comments, but I saw the tears in Dorothy's eyes. That night, she cried in my arms, saying she didn't recognize herself anymore. A week after we returned home, Dorothy announced she was joining a local gym. I was supportive of her decision. If it made her feel better about herself, I was all for it. She started going to the gym regularly, sometimes even twice a day. I was proud of her dedication and determination. At first, things seemed to be improving. Dorothy was more cheerful, more confident. She'd come home from the gym with a smile on her face, talking excitedly about her workout routines and the progress she was making. I was happy to see her happy, even if I missed our lazy weekend mornings and dinner dates. But then, something changed. Dorothy started spending more and more time at the gym. She'd go early in the morning before work and then again in the evening. On weekends, she'd be there for hours. When I suggested we go out for dinner or catch a movie, she'd say she couldn't miss her workout. I started to feel a disconnect growing between us. Dorothy was becoming distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts. When I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd brush it off, saying it was just gym friends discussing workout plans. I tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut, telling myself I was being paranoid. Last month, everything came crashing down. I had gone to see a movie with some work colleagues. As we were leaving the theater, I saw Dorothy coming out of another screen. She was with a guy I recognized as one of the trainers from her gym. They were holding hands, laughing intimately. When Dorothy saw me, the color drained from her face. The trainer quickly let go of her hand and walked away. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Dorothy tried to explain, saying they had just bumped into each other at the theater, but I knew better. The way they were behaving, it was clear this wasn't a chance encounter. I didn't confront her then and there. I was too shocked, too hurt. We went home in silence. Over the next few days, I started noticing things I had overlooked before. How she'd always position her phone away from me when texting. How she'd take calls in another room. How she'd get defensive if I asked about her day at the gym. Being a computer expert, I knew my way around technology. I hate to admit it, but I snooped. I checked her phone when she was in the shower, looked through her laptop. What I found broke my heart. Hidden folders with intimate pictures, explicit text conversations with the trainer. It was clear they had been having an affair for months. When I confronted Dorothy with the evidence, she broke down. She cried, saying she was swept away by emotions and circumstances. She begged for forgiveness, promised to end things with the trainer, swore it would never happen again. But all I could think about was the betrayal, the lies, the months of deception. I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I packed a bag and left, went to my brother's place. That's where I am now, trying to figure out what to do next. My whole world has been turned upside down. The woman I loved, the one I thought I knew, has become a stranger to me. I don't know if I can ever trust her again. The image of her with that trainer keeps playing in my mind. How do I move forward from this? Is there any coming back from such a betrayal? I'm lost, hurt, and angry. Any advice would be appreciated. Update. It's been a week since, nephew, how I'd been so good with them. But instead of it being a sweet observation, she turned it into something cruel. She told the trainer that it was such a waste because I'd never be man enough to father my own children. Reading those words felt like a physical blow. After a lot of soul-searching and discussions with William and Rosie, I've decided to file for divorce. It's not a decision I've made lightly, but I feel it's the right one for me. I can't see a future where I'm not constantly second-guessing Dorothy's every move, wondering if she's being truthful. Yesterday, I contacted a lawyer recommended by a friend from work. His name is Michael, and he specializes in divorce cases. We're going to meet next week to discuss the process and what I need to do next. The thought of ending my marriage is terrifying, but the thought of staying in a relationship built on lies is even worse. I haven't told Dorothy about my decision yet. I know I need to, but I'm dreading her reaction. Part of me is angry enough to want her to hurt the way I'm hurting, but another part still cares about her well-being, despite everything. This morning I woke up to a disturbing message from Dorothy. She said that if I go through with the divorce, she'll kill herself. She claims she can't live without me, that she'll do anything to make things right. I'm scared and conflicted. I don't want to be responsible for her harming herself, but I also can't let this threat control my decisions. The message brought back memories of our college days. There was a time when Dorothy struggled with depression during our junior year. The pressure of maintaining her grades while being the star of the volleyball team had become too much. I remember staying up nights with her, holding her as she cried, helping her through panic attacks. We got through it together, and I thought it had made our relationship stronger. Now, I can't help but wonder if she's using that past vulnerability to manipulate me. I'm not sure what to do now. Should I tell someone about her threat? Should I respond? Ignore it? I feel like I'm being manipulated, but I'm also genuinely worried about her state of mind. This whole situation is so messed up. A month ago, I thought I was in a happy marriage. Now, I'm hiding out at my brother's place, planning a divorce, and worried my wife might hurt herself. How did things go so wrong so fast? I could use some advice on how to handle this suicide threat. Has anyone been in a similar situation? How do I protect myself legally while also ensuring Dorothy's safety? I'm feeling overwhelmed and out of my depth here. Thank you all again for your support. It means more than you know. Update. It's been a year since my last update, and I wanted to share what's happened since then. It's been a long, painful journey, but I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. First, I want to address the immediate aftermath of my last post. Many of you advised me to take Dorothy's suicide threat seriously, and you were right. I ended up contacting her parents and letting them know about the situation. They were shocked by the news of her affair, but grateful that I informed them about her mental state. Talking to Dorothy's parents was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I've known them for years, spent holidays at their home, helped them move into their retirement condo. They were like second parents to me. Breaking the news about their daughter's affair and mental state felt like betraying them somehow. But I knew it was necessary. Unfortunately, things took a turn for the worse. A few days after I told her parents, Dorothy did attempt suicide. She was rushed to the ER and thankfully survived. It was a traumatic experience for everyone involved. I felt guilty, even though I knew rationally that her actions weren't my fault. I remember getting the call from Dorothy's mother, her voice shaking as she told me what had happened. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding. Seeing Dorothy lying in that hospital bed, pale and fragile, brought back memories of our life together. Our first date, our wedding day, all the happy times we'd shared. For a moment, I almost wavered in my decision to divorce. But then I remembered the betrayal, the lies, and I knew I couldn't go back. After her recovery, Dorothy was admitted to a psychiatric facility for evaluation and treatment. It became clear that she was dealing with severe depression and other mental health issues that had gone undiagnosed for years. While I was relieved she was getting help, it also made me realize how little I truly knew about the woman I had married. The divorce process began amidst all this chaos. It was far from smooth. Dorothy's family, initially sympathetic to my situation, turned hostile. They blamed me for her mental breakdown, accused me of abandoning her when she needed me most. The pressure was intense. I remember one particularly nasty confrontation with Dorothy's brother. He cornered me outside my office one day, hurling accusations and threats. He said I had promised to love Dorothy in sickness and in health, and that I was breaking my vows by leaving her now. It took everything in me not to lose my temper. I had to remind myself that he was speaking from a place of pain and worry for his sister. Over the next few months, Dorothy made 2 more suicide attempts. Each time, I got frantic calls from her family, guilt-tripping me into reconsidering the divorce. It was emotionally exhausting. I was torn between my decision to leave a toxic relationship and the fear that my actions might lead to tragedy. My brother William and his wife Rosie were my rocks during this time. They stood by me, reminding me that I wasn't responsible for Dorothy's actions. They helped me see that going back to her out of guilt or fear wouldn't solve anything. It would only trap us both in an unhealthy dynamic. William even took time off work to accompany me to court hearings and meetings with my lawyer. Having him there, a solid presence by my side, gave me the strength to face the grueling legal process. Rosie, meanwhile, became my confidant. She'd listen patiently as I vented my frustrations, offering wisdom from her experience as a school counselor. The harassment from Dorothy and her family was relentless. There were angry phone calls, nasty emails, even a few instances of them showing up at my workplace. I had to get a restraining order at one point. It was a nightmare. I remember one day when Dorothy's mother showed up at my office, causing a scene in the lobby. She was crying, begging me to give Dorothy another chance. My colleagues watched in shocked silence as security escorted her out. I felt humiliated and angry, but also deeply sad. This woman who had once welcomed me into her family was now a stranger, twisted by grief and desperation. Through it all, I tried to stay strong. I reminded myself why I had made the decision to divorce. The memories of her betrayal, the hurtful things she had said about me to her lover, they kept me resolute. It wasn't easy, but I knew going back wasn't an option. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago. It was a relief, but also oddly anticlimactic. After all the drama and pain, it came down to signing some papers. Just like that, my marriage was over. Since then, I've been focusing on healing and moving forward. I've thrown myself into my work, picked up some new hobbies. I've started learning to play the guitar, something I've always wanted to do but never found the time for. The methodical process of learning chords and practicing songs has been therapeutic, giving my mind something. to focus on besides my failed marriage. I've also been spending more time with William and Rosie's kids, my niece and nephew. Being around their innocent joy and boundless energy has been healing. It reminds me that there's still happiness and love in the world, even if my own life has been turned upside down. I won't lie and say I'm completely over everything that happened. There are still days when I wake up feeling angry or sad. Sometimes I'll catch a whiff of Dorothy's favorite perfume on a passerby, or I'll see a couple holding hands in the park and it'll hit me all over again. The pain isn't as sharp as it used to be, but it's still there. Looking back, I can see now how unhealthy our relationship had become, even before the affair. We had stopped communicating, stopped growing together. The affair was a symptom of deeper problems, not the cause. I realize now that I had been ignoring red flags for years, making excuses for Dorothy's behavior and my own unhappiness. There are moments when I wonder what would have happened if I had noticed these issues earlier, if we had sought help before things got so bad. But I try not to dwell on these what-ifs. They only lead to more pain and regret. I'm grateful for the support I received here on Reddit. Your advice and encouragement helped me through some of the darkest days of my life. To anyone going through something similar, know that it does get better. It's not easy and it takes time, but you can come out the other side stronger. As for me, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my life. I've started going to the gym regularly, not to change my appearance for someone else, but for my own health and well-being. I'm considering taking some night classes to further my career in IT. I've also been thinking about dating again, though I'm not quite ready to take that step yet. The thought of opening myself up to another person, of being vulnerable again, is still scary. But I'm hopeful that one day, when I'm ready, I'll find someone who truly appreciates me for who I am. For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life, one day at a time. I'm rediscovering who I am outside of my marriage, reconnecting with old friends, and making new ones. It's a slow process, but I'm getting there. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm looking forward to finding out. Thank you all again for being there when I needed it most. Your support has meant more than you could ever know.